Yeah.
Which is terrible.
I think students of knowledge need to be grimy. Zuhd. Right? We're alive? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Safina Society Nothing But Facts live stream where we got today. Look at this thing right here. Shifat Box. Is this a company? Is it? Look it up. Is this a company? I never heard of this before. Everyone here gets a miswak holder. Look at this Shifat Box. Okay. And it comes with a nice moist miswak. Okay. The miswak is either moist or dry. Of course, it's only going to be moist for about a week. Then once you start using it, it's going to be dry. But I love the miswak. It's one of those things that the only reason you'd ever use it or you overdo it is because it's a sunnah, right? So we got our miswak box, Shifat Box miswak here. Everyone is going to get one, right? And then Shifat Box is another, this is an organization. I mean, look it up. Someone put the link here, but you get all sorts of Shifat stuff. Like what? Zamzam. Okay. MashaAllah. Beautiful bottle of Zamzam water. It looks like the old bottle of CK1. You know CK1? That was in my day. It was so popular. The first time Calvin Klein made a perfume, right? Which basically was just like lemon and water. But beautiful, nice little bottle here. It says Zamzam. Pure Zamzam water. You have to drink a little bit of Zamzam water every day if you can get your hands on some. Okay, you got a Sidra honey. This is Sidra honey. Is from Yemen. Okay, Sidra honey. I love that when they give you this little honeycomb thing. I don't think anyone ever uses it, but it's nice to see. But I'll use it this time. And then you got, of course, the dates preferred by the Prophet to eat in the morning are ajwa dates. Okay, and these are the 7. They're giving you the 7, the sunnah, 7 ajwa dates, not 7 medjol dates that will give you diabetes. You're going to get type 2 diabetes. You eat 7 ajwa dates every morning. You know how much sugar that is? Oh, Palestinian olive oil. What kind of household, an Arab household, does not have olive oil in it? Okay, you got to have olive oil. Okay. The Desis don't use olive oil, right? But she's not 100% Desi. She's like American, essentially. Kashmiri. Black seed oil. This is another sunnah where the Prophet ﷺ spoke about the black seed. Of course, we looked at the miswak, and then athkar, the athkar, hisn al-Muslim, the different athkar of the different situations that you're in, like leaving the masjid. All right, after you hear the adhan, and that is a nice print right here, beautiful print. Then they give you a little, it's shifatbox.com. Of course, they're on Instagram, and they're saying, share a pic of you using the item and tag at Shifabox. Okay, so of course, that's how they're going to get the word out. So shifabox.com, really nice Ramadan gifts you can get for people. And this will be on your counter in the kitchen. That's how it works in these households. It'll be on the counter in the kitchen. Everyone will use it, for a week or 2 weeks, and then it's done. It's used up, and it's worth it. It was very good. Zamzam water, of course, is drank standing up. Unlike all other drinking, it's drank standing up, facing the Qibla, and you make a dua before it. Okay, by the way, we're going to have, after reading our stories of the Awliya, where we're going to finish Ar-Risala Al-Qushayriyyah's Awliya, the listing that he has. And he gave 80, he gives 83, and we're on 48, okay? We're on 48 out of 83, and then we could go into the bigger biographies after that. So then we're going to have Mu'in come on today to update us on GPT-4. So Omar Abbasi, if you could send Mu'in a link. How do we do it? StreamYard or Zoom?
Right now we're
In a little after the Awliya, right? After the Awliya, we'll do that. And then we have our farewell to Ryan, his last stream, right? Ryan's last stream before he leaves and graduates, I would say, right? From our program here. and moves on to be studying with the shuyukh in the east, where the Senate is high and thick and strong, right? And the institutions are there. And I like this. Because it's a lot. Yeah. I mean, if they, I don't know if they intended it to look like a wine bottle, but it's just like a nice, let's just give them a husn al-dhan, that it's just a nice bottle. But I like it because it's a lot. This is like a teaser, right? It's what you give out at like events and weddings and stuff, right? But this is good. You always, subhanAllah, use Zamzam water, okay? When you get Zamzam water, use it. Allah will always give you more. Some people like don't want to use it. Like keep it on the shelf after Hajj and stuff, after Umrah. It's not the right way to do things. Use it, okay?
That's how I feel about Aitor too.
Right, they're the same thing. I actually have all these expensive utur, and I'm like, I don't want to use it. So, but then you end up with like 10. And no, I just use, right? Don't be stingy. Just use. All right, so beautiful stuff here. Okay, what do you got there? Royal Egyptian Misk. Bismillah. How's everyone doing? How's everyone on the stream doing? Here we go. Aisha Mukhtar says, I've been hiding Zamzam for years. Okay? No, don't hide it. Use it. Just use it. Allah will provide you more. There's always Zamzam around.
So when you pour Zamzam in a cup of, sink water becomes Zamzam?
That's what they say.
So what if you pour it in the ocean?
Whatever it touches. If the water touches that. Whatever portion that water touches. And there's an amazing thing called Messages on Water where you could watch this. Where the guy goes at the molecular level and notices that a drop of Zamzam in a bottle of water alters the molecular construction of the entire bottle of water to look like the Zamzam. Yeah, Messages on Water. It's an amazing thing. Okay, let's now begin segment number 2. And if you're on this stream, make sure you click on for the notifications, and so you can get notifications about this stream, and subscribe to the channel, and then go to patreon.com/Safina Society. Okay. Abu al-Abbas al-Sayyari. من هو أبو العباس السياري? Okay. Al-Qasim ibn al-Qasim al-Sayyari. He's from Maru. صاحب الواسطي. وانتمى إليه في علوم هذه الطائفة. He was a alim. And he said, now notice these aren't really like biographies, but they're the names of some of the Sahaba. The Awliya, and their little sayings that they have. Okay, so if he's saying here, never received notification for the live stream. Yep, that's because someone clicked a button on us in YouTube so that we downgrade our channel. So our channel's been downgraded. I say, hey, listen, it's their platform. They downgrade who they want. It's not like land or air or water. People imagine that about these apps. It's not land or air or water. YouTube is owned by people, human beings. Those human beings have leanings, okay? And they want to shut us down, they shut us down. We'll go somewhere else. Allah provided this, Allah will provide something else. They don't like some of the things that we're talking about, so they downgrade us, so it'll never come up, okay? It'll never come up on your notifications now. It'll never come up on the things that you watch, right? Like if I watch one video of a channel, clearly I'm going to get, if I do that 3-4 times, I'm going to get suggestions all the time. All their stuff will come up, right? So that doesn't happen for anybody, right? So that's how it works. Someone, Malik says you should go on Rumble. I think we're going to have to. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of people on Rumble, but we're going to have to, right? Eventually, because this is like a house. A platform is like someone's home. They're letting you use their home. They owe us nothing, right? We'll still try to appeal. Yeah. We'll try to appeal and do what we can, but that's what shadow banning is. Okay. What did he say? بماذا يروض or يروض المريد نفسه? With what does a murid train himself? He was asked this question. How do I train myself? فقال بالصبر على فعل الأوامر. You have sabr on doing exactly what you're told. So how do you discipline yourself? You can't discipline yourself the way you want to. Okay. You can't discipline yourself the way you want to. You discipline yourself because then you'll stop when you want to. And you'll choose the exercises and the spiritual practices that you want. And then if you achieve it, you pat yourself on the back, right? But what the murid does in Islam, the way we purify our soul is by forcing ourselves, disciplining ourselves to do what Allah wants of us, not what we want to do for ourselves. That's the difference. Okay? That's the difference. Right? وَاجْتِنَابِ النَّوَاهِ. And this is really hard. The harder than doing what you have to do is avoiding what you have to avoid. Okay? Avoiding prohibitions. Okay? And then being with the salihin, because you might want to hang out with others. And who you watch on YouTube and on Spotify and all these things is something that it's a suhbah. It is a suhbah, right? So we have to understand this. Who you watch on TV is a suhbah. Okay? So if you're watching somebody, you're keeping that person's suhbah. You may not feel that it's the same, but it is the same. It has the same effect. Okay? Next, he says, khidmat al-fuqara, to be of service, to be a serviceable person. Like how many times we talked about we don't want dilettantes. We don't want our students of knowledge to be dilettantes. The dilettante is just somebody who he's just with words. All they do is words. They just talk, and they don't actually ever get their hands dirty. They'll never see them brooming, picking stuff up, moving chairs, folding tables. You'll never see them doing that stuff. Okay? You'll never see them doing all that stuff. Okay? وقال ما التذ عاقل بمشاهدة الحق قط لأن مشاهدة الحق فناء ليس فيها لذة. That's some heavy stuff. Next, 49. دلف الشبلي. They're not giving me any harakat here. دلف. أبو بكر دلف الشبلي بغدادي المولد والمنشأ وأصله من where is he from? What is this? Asrushna. Sahib al-Junayd. He's a companion of Junayd al-Salik and a companion, and he was one of the scholars. وكان شيخ وقته حالا وظرفا وعلما. He was one of the shuyukh at his time, in his state and in his knowledge. And he was a Maliki al-Madhab. And he is buried in Baghdad. And he said in the end of his days, he used to say, وَكَمْ مِنْ مَوْضِعٍ لَوْ مِتُّ فِيهِ لَكُنْتُ بِهِ نَكَالًا فِي الْعَشِيرَةِ. What it means, there are how many places were there? If I died, it would be blameworthy for the family. The family would not want, be blameworthy for the family. What does that mean? Maybe it means that he would go to the very poor places, right? Maybe to give khidmah. We'll see. وَلَمَّا تَابَ الشِّبْلِ في مجلس خير النساء نساج أتى دماوند. When he repented, he came to Damawand. كنت والي بلدكم فاجعلوني في حل وكانت مجاهدته في بداية فوق الحد. So apparently he made a repentance, and he was not born and raised upon this path. He made a repentance, and he used to do severe mujahada against his nafs. سمعت أبا علي الدقاق يقول بلغني أنه اكتحل بكذا وكذا من الملح ليعتاد السهر ولا يأخذه النوم. And that he used to do things that would keep him awake so he doesn't sleep, right? And do his ibadat. وكان إذا حل شهر رمضان المبارك جد في الطاعات فوق جد من عاصره. It was Ramadan, he would do more than anybody else. وقال هذا شهر عظمه ربي فأنا أول من يعظمه من الناس. He said, Allah magnified this month, I want to be the first to magnify it. Meaning, or aggrandize it. Meaning, he wants to be the first person to, or he wants to be the most in aggrandizing this month, in treating it with jidd, seriousness. Okay. Next is Bindar al-Shirazi, another alim, and his specialty was usul al-fiqh, and he had a great hal, and he was a companion of the previous one. Okay. He said, لا تخاصم لنفسك. Don't have a fight with anyone for the sake of your nafs, for yourself. فإنها ليست لك. Because your nafs is not even yours. You're the creation of Allah, so leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If people insult you, people say stuff to you, etc. Okay. And then he says, دعها لمالكها يفعل بها ما يريد. Leave your nafs to your creator. Let him do what he wishes. Right. Bring us that beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for it to.
Oh, it's heating up still?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a good one over there though. Amber.
Where is it?
It's like,
In there?
It's the fancy one though. I don't know if you want to use it.
Let's use it.
Yeah.
Why not?
I use it the other day.
Okay. All right. Your nafs is not yours, so let people do what they want with it. All right. صحبة أهل البدع تورث الإعراض عن الحق. If you keep the company of the people of innovations, bid'ah, you'll be just like them. Okay? And you will eventually imitate, okay, أهل الحق, أهل البدع, in turning away from the truth. They lack submission to the truth. They don't accept the truth as it comes to them. They always have some argument back. قال اترك ما تهوى لما تأمل. Leave your desires off. Leave off your desires. Okay? Okay. So that you can gain something greater than that. And all spiritual strength comes from contradicting your desires. Okay. Muhammad ibn Khafif al-Shirazi, he says, Al-irada istimadatu al-kaddi wa tark al-raha. Strong willpower is hard work and leaving off relaxation. Al-irada, strong will. ليس شيء أضر على المريد من مسامحة النفس في ركوب الرخص وقبول التأويلات. Okay. Nothing is worse for the murid than being lenient with your nafs. Now, in what though? Lenient in your nafs. In what? In taking rukhas. Like, this is the fiqh you believe in, but all of a sudden, you don't like this ruling, so you say, all right, we'll dip into a lesser opinion, we'll go to that madhab. You just go light with yourself on the halal and the haram. And also another thing he said is that you just reinterpret everything to suit your will, right? Your nafs, to suit your shahwat. وسئل عن القرب فقال قربك منه تعالى بملازمة الموافقات. You want to draw near to Allah Ta'ala? It's by observing what He loves, not what you love. وقربه منك بدوام التوفيق. And the sign that Allah is with you is that you constantly have tawfiq. You intend to do something good and Allah gives you success. Right? That's tawfiq. دخل فقير على الشيخ أبي عبد الله بن خفيف فقال للشيخ, a poor man came and he said, بي وسوسة. I don't know if he here means a faqir as in a murid or an actual poor person. He said, I have waswasa. فقال الشيخ عهدي بالزهاد يسخرون من الشيطان والآن الشيطان يسخر منهم. So this was a faqir. He was a man who was like dressed in a frock and all that stuff. And he said, in my time, the Zuhd were so strong, the worshippers were so strong, they would mock shaitan. Hmm? No, yaskharun. Sukhriya, sin kha. Yeah. Yaskharun. And he said, Wal-an huwa yaskharu minhum. Now shaitan is laughing at them. Subhanallah. سمعت أبا عبد الله يقول ضعفت عن القيام في النوافل فجعلت بدل كل ركعة من أورادي ركعتين قاعدة. I couldn't do tahajjud anymore standing. He was too tired. Got old. Okay. So instead I would do double the amount of tahajjud sitting. Okay. للخبر صلاة القاعدة على النصف من صلاة القائم. Because of the khabar, the narration that the salah sitting is half the reward of salah standing, and that is also, you can find that in Matan al-Akhdari, that you are permitted to do nawafil sitting for no reason, and that it's half the reward. You get half the reward. You can find that in Matan al-Akhdari. And if you make the intent to pray 2 rak'ahs standing, you can't sit down. And if you don't make the intention, either way, then at any time you can stand and sit. So if you're reciting, you can recite Fatiha, a couple ayahs, okay, couple ayahs, and then sit down. And then after you rest up, you can stand up. You can do this in Tarawih too, right? Tarawih, I personally hold the belief it's not supposed to be a type of self-torment. I don't like this approach that people take to Tarawih, right? I don't like this approach. And it's not supposed to be a type of self-torment that you're tormenting yourself and I'm going to force myself to stand. No, you force yourself to have khushu', right? But if your feet are numbing up, are you thinking of Allah or your feet? And one time we had the witr dua is so long in the last 10 nights that I overheard one of the kids saying, after like a few minutes of this, my only dua is for this to end, right? This is a fitna, right? It's a fitna. On the one hand, it's not a fard prayer, right? It's not fard. So maybe the imam can go as long as he wants, and from the fiqh standpoint. But people don't know that. People think that, like, they obviously they know it's not fard. But when they treat it like that, because there's almost like a type of peer pressure where everyone's there, so I got to sort of do this. That's not right. This is not the right approach. The reason that 20 rak'ahs and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz 36 rak'ahs is to shorten each rak'ah, right? And that allows you to go in and out as much as you want. If the whole Tarawih is, let's say, 90 minutes, right? If you did 8 rak'ahs, how many minutes per rak'ah? 10 per 2 rak'ahs. 10 2 rak'ah units. Let's say 10 minutes, right? Now, if you did 20 rak'ahs, now you shrunk that to how much now? Let's say 80 minutes for the sake of even numbers. 4 minutes, right? 20 rak'ahs, 4 minutes a rak'ah. You went from 10 minutes a rak'ah to 4 minutes a rak'ah. So if a person says, okay, I have 5 more minutes. A person says, I have 5 more minutes. He can't attend a long rak'ah, a long 2 rak'ahs. He can attend he can attend at least one more if it's a shorter rak'ah. Okay? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, make it 36 rak'ahs. Okay? Showing you, and he's trained by the ulama of Medina. He was trained by them. So that actually proves Tarawih the number is not what matters, and the number can change. The mashhur in the Maliki school, I know in many other schools, if not all of them, is that if the masjid is going to establish it, it is most preferable to establish 20, which is what the Sahaba used to do. If you're going to establish a public Tarawih in a mosque, do it what the Sahaba did, 20. But you're not bound by that. You make it more or less. Okay? I know in Algeria they do 13, right? Based on a hadith that said the Prophet would do 11, then 10, and then Shafa and Witr. So it's not about the numbers, and it's about our focus in it. And that's what's important. And I think that mentality is no good. Tafadhal. No.
Question about Tarawih prayers, because I've spoken to people, they say that they tend to avoid, you were talking about the fitna, they tend to avoid the Tarawih at the beginning of Ramadan because they say Surah Baqarah is too long.
Yeah.
So how do we have to recite the entire.
Firstly, we don't have to recite the entire Quran, but it's nice to hear the Quran and have the khatm of Quran. That's the one thing. But the reason that the first 2 nights is that the the Qurra would like to finish by the 28th night. Why? Because Ramadan is either going to be 29 or 30 nights, right? So you don't want to have to just finish on the 29th night. What happens is if you get sick or something, right? So they give themselves 28 days to finish 30 juz. And if you're going to do that, then how do you make up for the first two juz? Is that they do a juz and a half on the first 2 nights. No, a juz and 3/4. Maybe a juz and a half on the first 3 nights or 4 nights, right? By doing a juz and a half, they're ahead by 2 juz. And then they could finish now 1 juz a day after that. That's what most of the imams do.
But you're saying you can sit during those as well.
You can sit, yeah. People should sit. People like if you're cannot focus and you're just in pain, sit down. Okay, ibadah is not supposed to be a fight against yourself. You're there. You're at the masjid. You're getting reward, right? I don't see that. That's not the ibadah that I know. That's not how I don't remember any of the shuyukh going that route. And I did see some masajid do that, and one imam like really pushing it hard, right? So the whole month became about how much pain your feet can take. Hold on a second. You got people coming to the masjid. They just had pain in their stomach all day. Now you want to have pain in their feet now all night. Well, how are they going to have, ibadah should be with enjoyment. Okay? That's how I view it. All right, so he says here, who are we on even? وقال سمعت أبا عبد الله بن خفيف يقول ضعفت عن القيام. Okay, we said this. فجعل, he did double sitting. وقال ربما كنت أقرأ في ابتداء أمري في ركعة واحدة 10,000 مرة قل هو الله أحد وربما كنت أقرأ في ركعة واحدة القرآن كله وربما كنت أصلي من الغداة إلى العصر 1000 ركعة. So he used to do so much ibadah that he used to recite the entire Quran in 1 rak'ah, like Sayyidina Uthman. Okay, subhanallah, and pray hundreds of nawafil between Dhuhr and Asr. Okay. Next is Abu al-Hasan ibn al-Sa'igh, and he lived in Egypt and died in it, and he was a big sheikh. And he said, ما رأيت من المشايخ أكثر نورا من أبي يعقوب النهرجوري. SubhanAllah. From the shuyukh, I never saw anyone with more nur than Abu Yaqub al-Nahrajuri. ولا أكثر هيبة من أبي الحسن ibn al-Sa'igh. And no one with more haiba than him, Abu al-Hasan al-Sa'igh. وسئل عن الاستدلال بالشاهد على الغائب. He was asked about taking evidence بالشاهد على الغائب. فقال كيف يستدل بصفات من له مثل ونظير على من لا مثل له ولا نظير. Okay. Taking evidence on the existence of the unseen, the creator, based upon what's seen. And he said, how can you point to what is infinite with what is finite? Right? SubhanAllah. So that's why they say that in the beginning of a person's path, they use the finite, the world, to point and prove the infinite. But at the end, you're not, the yaqeen in the existence of Allah is like a fact to the point that it is no, the infinite is what we rely upon to understand the finite, not the other way around. In the beginning, that the path of the person, they're sort of veiled, they have a lot of veils. So they need what is physical in front, what all they have access to is this world to point to the existence of the creator. Once their iman gets strengthened, everything is reversed. It's through the creator we understand this world. And that's the difference between the biologist, physicist mentality and approach to things and the arifina billah. The arifina billah, they look at the the existence of Allah Ta'ala is a given, and through that is how they understand the world. وسئل عن صفة المريد. What's the description of a seeker of Allah? فقال ما قال الله تعالى عز وجل وضاقت عليهم الأرض بما رحبت. Their attribute is what Allah says in Surah At-Tawbah, which was about Ka'b ibn Malik and his two companions that never went out for the battle. And he said that وضاقت عليهم الأرض بما رحبت, meaning this earth is constricted despite its vastness, meaning that the murid has not impressed with this world, not interested in this world, and wants to go to the akhirah. وقال الأحوال كالبروق. A state is like lightning. Okay, it comes and goes. فإذا ثبتت فهي حديث النفس وملازمة الطبع. If it remains, okay, if the state of a person remains, then it becomes part of your nature. So there are states and there are ahwal. Okay? And that's the difference between a state and a hal. How are we on Mu'in? Is he on?
No idea. What's his email?
How are we going to communicate with Mu'in to give us the update?
We're on Zoom. We're invited through Zoom. We're invited through Zoom.
Does he have the Zoom? What's your...
Omar, can you go on Zoom and do the invite?
Yeah.
I think for more.
Yeah.
It's just Mu'in Sayyid at Gmail.
Mu'in?
Mu'in Sayyid at gmail.com.
That's okay. He spells say it in such an odd way too anyway, so it doesn't make
Right.
no one's going to know. He'd probably be the type of person to enjoy cold calls like that. Are we on Instagram?
Yes, we are.
How are these people doing on Instagram?
Not much.
Dawood al-Ta'i. So we read Dawood al-Ta'i while you get Mu'in on?
Is he ready?
Yeah, you just email him the link.
Yeah, you know it.
Abu Sulaiman, Dawood ibn Nadir al-Ta'i. He was one of the major Zuhd of the early time. سمعت الأستاذ أبا علي الدقاق يقول كان سبب زهد داود الطائي أنه كان يمر ببغداد فمر يوما فنحاه الناس عن الطريق بين يدي حميد الطوسي فالتفت داود فرأى حميدا. There should be an alif and a two fathas there because it's the مفعول به. فرأى أي داود حميدا فقال داود أفد لدنيا سبقك بها حميد ولزم البيت وأخذ في الجهد والعبادة. What was the reason that he turned onto this path is that he was walking in Baghdad and everyone said, hey, come, look at Humayd al-Tusi. It's apparently a very respected, wealthy man that had amazing dunya. And he said, he gets there and he said, uff, meaning expression of dislike for this, everyone looking at this man's dunya. He disliked it. Okay? And that was the reason that he said, actually, I'm going to go the opposite way. He saw it, he said, I'm going the opposite way. سمعت ببغداد بعض الفقراء يقول, I heard in Baghdad some of the fuqara saying, إن سبب زهده, the cause of his zuhd. Notice, إن سبب, because إن is a nasib للمبتدا, اسم إن سبب زهده أنه سمع نائحة تنوح وتقول. He heard a woman crying and saying, بأي خديك تبدي البلاء وأي عينيك إذا انسالا وقيل كان سبب زهده أنه كان يجالس أبا حنيفة. Some say that he turned back and he became a zahid because he used to keep the company of Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa said to him one day, "O Abu Sulaiman, أما الأداة فقد أحكمناها." فقال له داود فأي شيء بقي. Okay. فقال العمل به. As for like the expression of, I think he means here the fiqh. We fulfilled it. So then, but that gives an idea that there's something else. So he says, فأي شيء بقي. Well, what's left? Abu Hanifa says, action upon it. Now we have to do it. The class we gave, now we have to act upon it. قال داود فنازعتني نفسي إلى العزلة. My soul would not accept anything except عزلة, solitude. I said to myself, حتى تجالسهم ولا تتكلم في مسألة. Okay? Don't talk about anything. No talking about this, the deen, acting upon it. Okay? قال فجالستهم سنة لا أتكلم في مسألة. So I made myself sit with them, not participating in the discussion. Just listening only. Okay? وكانت, bring it here so we can get some smoke. وكانت المسألة تمر بي وأنا إلى الكلام فيها أشد نزاعا من العطشان إلى الماء البارد. So Abu Hanifa used to allow everyone to talk. So he said the discussion would come to me and I would be so, I wanted to talk about it so much, more than a thirsty person needs to drink. But I wouldn't, to control his nafs. I'm not going to say my opinion. ثم صار أمره إلى ما صار. And by constantly going against his nafs like that, his state became what it became. You gotta always go. And every generation, every century, you're going to go against your nafs in a different way. Okay? Okay, let's stop here. This Mu'in is waiting. And maybe after Mu'in, we'll wrap up with one more comment on from Dawood al-Ta'i. All right, let's bring Mu'in on. Mu'in, what exactly? Mu'in is our AI correspondent. And everything that's new in tech, which is obviously today's AI, Mu'in is very knowledgeable on what's going on with Chat-GPT. He recently did an experiment using Chat-GPT to code, or GPT-4, to code a Quranic translation app, right? I think it just was an experiment, right, Mu'in? First of all, let's get the mic on, and let's get Mu'in's mic on and double check that. I think Mu'in's mic will not be on. Okay. All right, let's test it now.
Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Mu'in, you want to say something real quick?
I'm speaking. Can you hear me?
No. Listen.
I am speaking.
Testing. Good. We got you. Everyone on YouTube, you can hear Mu'in? And on Instagram? All right, good. You're good to go. All right, Mu'in, let's hear your update. Mu'in's got a chat GPT-4 update. Mu'in's our AI correspondent. Let's hear it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
So I hate being just like a the Chat-GPT guy, but it is what it is. Alhamdulillah, I think it's something that we should keep abreast of with changing times. So a quick update that I wanted to give is this week, OpenAI released, and this is giving me like real weird vibes because I see like an older version of myself on this screen and a newer version of myself on this screen, so forgive me. So it's like showing me like 3 seconds past of the stream, and I see you turning this way, but this one.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, anyways, all right. So few days ago, so 3 days ago, OpenAI released its new language learning model GPT-4. Now, this model was in training since 2020. Okay, and Chat-GPT, which most people are familiar with, which is the consumer-friendly version with the UI that you're able to access and ask questions to, that is also now updated with GPT-4. Now, OpenAI has been making tons and tons of investments in lots of different places, and people are investing in them. And one of the greatest investments is Microsoft. And this afternoon, Microsoft also announced that they're going to be integrating GPT-4 into Bing, Outlook, Teams, Word, Excel, anything that you can think of.
Wow. Google must be really upset.
Yeah, well, it's one thing that from a financial perspective, I know a lot of people are trying to sort of, this is the nuclear arms race of 2023, so to speak, right? And what is very interesting is the quality of the outputs that you get from GPT-4 compared to GPT-3. Now, a lot of people claim, oh, what's so special about a language learning model? It's what you would call a stochastic parrot, right? Which is that it only seems to guess the next word in the process. And I explained it on the last time I came on. However, even though it only seems to be guessing the next step on the process in the output and seems to be giving you something, the way that it's giving you something, it looks and feels very human-like. Okay, so what I did to actually test this, I did a few different tests. So I signed up for the Plus version so that I could access GPT-4. One thing that I did is, so I am a software engineer, even though I work a lot on the product side, I wanted to build out as quickly as possible an application using only chatbot. And I wanted to see how well GPT-4 does. And so on my Twitter, and I'll actually share the link, I ended up deploying this application. So I'm going to share it on the YouTube chat. I was able to create this application in roughly the actual application. I was able to make it in about an hour and a half. It's all of the other, making it look a little pretty, making sure everything is kind of working, kind of getting the bugs out. It took me another 2 hours. Now, what's remarkable is I wrote 0 lines of code for this entire application. I edited only a couple of lines of code for it to get working. So when I started the prompt and I said, okay, I want to build out this Quran Arabic learning translation application. I will share the link in.
Can you share the screen so we could look at what your application looks like?
Unfortunately, I'm on a work computer, so I can't share my screen. Next time I'll log on a personal laptop. But
okay.
If anybody has access to my Twitter, I have it as the first link that I posted, and I just shared it in the Zoom. I shared it on here. I think I can share it on YouTube without. Let me see if this works. Get rid of all the spaces. See if that works. I'm also banned on the Telegram chat, so don't feel bad. I don't know.
Wait, what is going on with the banning? Who is banning?
I'm banned on Telegram too.
No, who is banning on Telegram?
I don't know. I was an admin, so I don't even know how I got.
Wait, how do you get banned?
I don't know. I was an admin too, so either it was Telegram or another admin banned me by accident.
First of all, I like your first comment on Twitter that shows a picture, a very realistic looking picture of an old woman putting her hands up, and you are telling us it's clearly a picture of a woman, right? But you're telling us it is 100% AI generated, and your comment is, "This is AI generated. Welcome to never trusting anything on the internet ever again." And I totally agree with you that the AI has rendered the web an untrustworthy source, a speculative source of information that has to be verified. It got to be verified now. Okay, and here is your. I see now your Quranic Arabic translation form. Okay, so tell us what else What else
what-
are your thoughts about this?
what's remarkable about it isn't that I made the app. Okay, other people who can code can make this app. It's not a extremely complicated app for coders.
Let me ask you something. Sorry to interrupt, but when you said I didn't write any code, so what did you tell GPT-4 to do?
As a matter of fact, let me read. I think I have it available here. Let me read back my initial prompt and what I started from. So I wrote it down here.
Like you write on you just say it. Write me code. Write me a translation app.
This is verbatim what I wrote.
Mhm.
I want to create a game built in Angular that is a Quranic Arabic learning game. I want to be presented a view of the game, which is called Quranic Arabic Learning, which shows a short verse from the Quran upon load. Then underneath are blank areas under each of the words where I can rearrange the words. The goal of the game is to drag the blocks to the appropriate spaces to translate the words from the verse. I want the rules of the game to be as following. Once I have placed all the blocks into the spaces, I can click the submit button to check my answer. Once I hit submit, check which blocks are in the correct places, and whichever blocks are not in those same places, highlight those blocks in red. It didn't actually do that step. Okay, I need to fix that. Show my total number of points starting at 0, and every time I make a correct submission without any errors, I get 5 points. Every time I can make a correct submission after I've made a mistake, I get 1 point. Although later I changed this to 3. And I said, can you help me put this together? So then it proceeded to give me a rundown of all of the steps that I needed to do. Now, that steps were a lot. And I said, okay, let's slow down and let's do it step by step. Let's start with step 1 and tell me what I need to do. And it said, okay, you're going to have to install Angular. Now, I had a few of these things already installed, so I didn't have to do it, but it gave me all the steps to do so. It said, you need to install Angular, you need to install the CLI, you need to build something called a component within Angular, and then within it, so Angular is a type of coding framework for building web applications. And it just said, okay, you need to do this. And I said, okay, let me go do that. Let me go do that. Let me go do that. And I followed all of the steps and I clicked go, and it wasn't working. And when it wasn't working, all I did was copy the bug and said, here's the error, fix it. And so it said, oh, I've made a mistake. I see that what we did here is wrong. Let me fix it. And so then it gave me a fix, and then went and I changed that, put the fix in. Now that fixing back and forth, I want to say it took me roughly 2 hours. Okay. That back and forth is what took me the longest time, of just going back and forth to fix all the little bugs. And I wrote no code. The only thing I did was copy the code from one location on the chatbot over to my IDE in Visual Studio, and I just pasted it. Now, some might say, well, could any layperson do this? My answer is no, not yet. Okay, I think you still need to have a level of technical know-how to be able to at least have some of these things installed, run some of these things, know what it's doing. But I think it will eventually get there. And this is only on the side of programming, right? And this is not to say that it's not going to encompass other areas. Now, one interesting thing to note about GPT-4 is that it's not just text-based. It's going to also be image-based. So you'll be able to paste in an image. And if you actually scroll down on Twitter, I think 3-4 posts down, I posted an image of a meme of chicken nuggets. And GPT-4 was asked, can you describe why this meme is funny? Okay, and so it's able to take image input, describe the input, and then give it back to you as to why it's humorous or why it's funny. And it can do all sorts of things. It was able to take an image of a Discord chat, and it was able to say, here's all of the people that are in this chat, here's what's going on in this chat, and it described the entire image that it was given to it. So why this is, go ahead.
Doesn't he ask him why is banning people on Telegram?
People don't talk about why something's funny, right? People say something, they put like LOL or whatever. How is a Chat-GPT going to know why something's funny? Like when we all see a joke, we all just laugh, right? We don't actually explain the joke in the comments, right? But the GPT learns by the language that's out there on the internet, right? So how does it know how something's funny?
How, I don't know, right? Some people will claim that it's able to do so just by understanding how language works and how ideas works. Now, what does understanding for an AI mean? I don't know. We have a lot of like deep philosophical questions to answer in the coming days about what some of this stuff will mean. Now, here's the meme, all right? And I want you guys to just listen to the response that it gives and realize how crazy it is that an AI can explain.
Do you want me to describe this meme, this picture to people?
Sure, I have it pulled up here.
Oh, you can share it?
I can.
No, you can't share it because you're on your
Yeah.
work. Here,
Okay.
look at this, everyone. It's just a tray, and it's got fried chicken in the form of the map, basically. So there's a piece of fried chicken that looks like each continent and each country covering the whole map. You see this, right?
Yep. And so it's basically
That's the idea.
And the meme is sometimes I just look at pictures of the Earth
Yeah.
from space and I marvel at how beautiful it is. And it was given to Chat-GPT, and it said, "Can you explain this meme and why it's kind of funny?"
Yeah.
And GPT-4 said, "This meme is a joke that combines two unrelated things: pictures of the Earth from space and chicken nuggets. The text of the meme suggests that the image below is a beautiful picture of the Earth from space. However, the image is actually of chicken nuggets arranged to vaguely resemble a map of the world. The humor in this meme comes from the unexpected juxtaposition of the text and the image. The image sets up an expectation of a majestic image of the Earth, but the image is actually something mundane and silly."
Well, okay, so picture reading is built in because this could have been anything besides chicken nuggets. Like, I would know that it's chicken, but how did ChatGPT know this was actually chicken, not like anything else? This could have been cauliflower, fried cauliflower.
It's
or
been
something, right?
trained on images, and they've used reinforcement learning to say that, okay, these are the, all those captchas that you guys have been doing for 10
Oh,
plus
yeah,
years,
yeah.
right? Where it was like, oh, find where the
Yeah.
where the bus is, right? That was training all these AIs, right?
Okay, so image training is part of it. That's probably all right. I get that.
Now, ChatGPT
Should have
does
known
not,
that too. Yeah.
ChatGPT does not have image recognition for consumers yet. It's already built, it's already sort of released, but they haven't released it publicly for consumers because they're afraid of the impact that this will cause to society if there's not safety precautions in place. Because what can you do if you're able to connect it to the internet somehow, show an image of a person, and say, "Hey, can you find me where this person is?" Right? And it's able to do so using Facebook, Twitter, Google Maps, and pinpoint a location. Right? There's so many. I mean, I can't even fathom to think how many different use cases there are for something like this. And there's a lot of creative people out there. I'm sure they'll come up with many different things. The first thing that came to mind is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with sneaker bots, right? To buy
Yeah.
sneakers.
People have whole companies on this.
Well, and it makes all those bots like quickly obsolete when you can have an image, load the image, and it can just click whatever buttons you ask it to click, and it can automate the entire workflow for you. I bring all this stuff up in this update because I think everybody should be abreast of this knowledge that this stuff, if you woke up 6 months ago, if you went to sleep 6 months ago and you woke up today, you'd be in a different world. I'm sorry. It's just the world is, the technology of everything is changing so rapidly that as soon as Microsoft adds, for example, ChatGPT-4 to Excel, you'll no longer have to do all these wild Excel
all you have to do is check. You just edit it.
You just write it in. Hey, I want you to filter this column, and I want you to be able to do this thing. How many data scientists or data analysts and people working with data day in and day out? People might say, "Oh, it's not going to completely replace." Yeah, it might not completely replace anybody because humans are still involved in the process, but it will make many people redundant, right? So what could have been done by 50 people is now done by 20 people. And so that obviously will impact people.
Well, let's talk about real world stuff. If this is the case, then a person needs maybe what, like 5% of the knowledge to be a coder now? Think about that. You just said you just did an app with some knowledge and no code, but you did, use some terms that I think no one here knows about, like Angular or whatever that was. So you did talk about, so what do you need? Like 5% of the knowledge now, right?
Well, I think what this enables people to do is someone who is tech savvy,
Yeah.
and let's say if they've done like a semester of coding in college, they could, or like, a semester of a programming course, 6 months worth, they could very easily now build out certain applications, because all you need to do is, why would I hire an engineer? And engineers, they get paid a lot of money. Why would I hire an engineer at Amazon for $200,000 when I can hire someone for $40,000 to be able to use this and, just build whatever I'm asking? Sure, it might take, a little bit longer, whatever. It's saving me $160,000. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's this is a value proposition that a lot of companies are going to have to soon think about.
What else is a real world implication, if any, to what you discovered about GPT-4 and its developments? I mean, you've already said a lot that coding is going to get a lot simpler for people because it's doing it for them. And pretty much all the coder has to do is check the work and make edits, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's real world implications? I think there's too many to list to start. I think it's going to impact every industry. This is just as impactful as the internet or the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds like ridiculous to say. I know somebody in the chat just said it has trouble with hard leet code problems. So leet code is like it's like a game that people play online to solve really complex algorithmic coding problems. Now, I cannot solve hard leet code problems, and I am a senior engineer. Many people cannot solve hard leet code problems. Now, the question is, does it need to solve hard leet code problems? A lot of people keep saying, well, it's never going to be able to replace a doctor or an accountant. Maybe not expert doctors and maybe not expert accountants, but low-level people who just, are wishy-washy and don't really know much to begin with. They're going to have a tough problem, right? There's a lot of, you can go online and find on TikTok a lot of people making videos day in the life of, where they roam around Meta and drink kombucha all day. Those guys are going to have a tough time in the next 2 years. They don't do anything. I mean, all these middle management type jobs. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, I think that in the future it's going to be, if you're saying that AI is taking over the technical side of things, like accounting, bookkeeping, all that stuff. Well, what's left for human beings other than creativity, right? And spontaneity. So yeah. I actually foresee entertainers taking over, because think about it, that's the one thing that is safer from AI than a lot of other things. This sounds crazy, but like those types, that element that's purely human and is not a rational thing that any machine could just do 85% of it for you.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I hope that things like writing, like creative writing, is really hard to replace. Even if you could replace like a photograph, being able to replace, like, even if you have an AI writing like Steinbeck, someone who's a proficient reader knows the difference between Steinbeck and Jane Austen or, Melville or Thoreau, right? Like, there is a level of creative
flex in here. He's flexing. Wayne flexing his literary knowledge. Bro, the guy's not just a senior engineer. The guy took English courses. Well, let me ask you this, Moeen. Can AI do graphic design yet?
Yes and no. So if you ask Midjourney or Stable Diffusion to build out wireframes and mockups of websites, it's able to do so, but not like proficiently as like a UX designer, right? It's still, because UX design still requires a lot of human input, where a lot of UX design and information architecture is built on like human psychology, right? And understanding like what your specific stakeholders want. So let's say you're working for the Washington Post and you're designing like a mobile app. When you're speaking to your like consumer base and stakeholders, it might be like old grandmas to young teenagers at school, right? And so designing for those two different audiences, that's a lot of like human effort still involved. So,
and what if I say to GPT-4, produce for me a poster for such and such an event at such and such a time and use a picture from nature and use Times New Roman, etc., etc.
It's
Right.
not there yet. It's not there yet because all those tools are not combined. You know, separate tools can do each of those tasks individually. You could go to Midjourney or Stable Diffusion and ask to do one of those things, but you'll never, those tools are not combined yet, right? Eventually, in 2 years or so, I think they will be, but they're not there yet.
Okay. Okay. So what is the significant improvement between original Chat-GPT and Chat-GPT and GPT-4?
The greatest improvement is the amount of content that you could put in, right? So the context window.
Content meaning the commands.
Yeah. So the amount that you could actually give to it and the memory that it would have. So before there were only certain, I don't want to get technical, it's based to do with tokens, but let me make it simpler. Let's say it could remember 30 messages back. Now it can remember like 100 messages back. And before you could only send it 1,500 words maximum. Now you can send it, I think, 10,000 words at once. So you could copy an entire technical documentation or an entire PDF of a file and say, hey, can you go through this PDF and point me out certain things? So one experiment that I want to try that I haven't...
you can upload a file.
No, but you could copy the whole contents of the file. So one thing I want to try that maybe I'll try later today or sometime this week, I want to upload a text of fiqh, right? So for example, let's say I upload like Akhdari or something, you know, I upload some text of fiqh in English and then ask it a question based on that fiqh text and see if it can give me the correct answer. I don't know if it'll work, but...
Well, you could try that. That's easy. And what about languages?
Oh, it can convert and translate back and forth from most major languages. As a matter of fact, let me read out one of the tests that I gave it. So I know you can't speak Urdu, but there might be a lot of people who can speak Urdu on this stream. So I said to it, can you write me a shairi in Urdu? A shairi means poem. In Urdu with transliteration that is about how AI removes humanity from a person and why it's a thing that's disliked. So the poem that it gave me, I'll give the translation first and then I'll read it in Urdu. Driven away from the gathering of humanity is this artificial friend. What can we do in the light of intellect? This beloved is enthralled. In the world we wander in the love of machines. Here, in the path of humanity, we have lost ourselves. And this is the Urdu. And if you understand Urdu well enough, you'll know that this isn't like child writing. This is very advanced.
Read it and I'll compare if it sounds like what Qari Zahid recites.
बज़्म इंसानियत से दूर करता है ये मस्नूई दोस्त क्या करे अकल की रोशनी में है ये महबूब मस्त इश्क ए मशीन का जहां में भटक रहे हैं हम इंसानियत के राह में हो गए हैं हम यहाँ.
That's legit.
It's legit. So
it passed the ear test for sure. You said hey, must, all the words that I was looking for.
And by the way, it gave me the Urdu text too, right?
Yeah.
Not just the transliteration. It gave me the actual script in Urdu and the transliteration.
So GPT-4 constructed that poem.
Yes, completely constructed it. I had not inputted anything else.
These apps, they are taking over some creative space then.
Of course.
And I was talking to a designer when you were posting, you know that app that came out and everyone was putting their picture
Lensa.
What was it called?
Lensa. I told people not to post their stuff on there.
I told people, or I told the designer, some of this stuff is way nicer, and some of the stuff that you for example, you asked it to produce Turkey, a picture of Istanbul, if it was run by what do you call them?
If it was a cyberpunk Istanbul.
Cyberpunks, right? And it produced a picture that it would have probably taken a designer a week to put this together.
Yeah.
Right? To think about it, put it together, and it produced it in a matter of seconds. Why does anyone need a quick graphic designer anymore if these apps exist, right? So it actually is putting out, getting involved in the creative process. Why don't you use it to say, make me a whole series comic book story with this, this, and this, and see what it produces?
So there's actually a
crazy idea
there's a big feud that took place amongst creatives. There's a group called the Corridor Crew. I'll share the video on here if you guys are interested. They built an anime, like a short 15-minute like animation. Almost they use a lot of AI to do so, and they were basically be able to use like green screens and then just like go around like regular people's faces, like their crew, and then they used Stable Diffusion and a bunch of things to convert it into an anime. And people are really upset that they shared the process to do so, because now this ruins a lot of animators very quickly.
Well, I mean, when Steve Jobs went around and they put together Toy Story with Pixar, it's the same thing, right? All the cartoonists are now, hold on a second, that was our job. And now you have some guys with, they can't draw a mouse, have put together a movie, right? Pixar and what's the other company? Pixar and
Ghibli, Disney,
DreamWorks, I guess, but DreamWorks does a lot of other things. But you know, these types of animations where they're all computer animated. What is the difference between now? You're just skipping more of the process, right? So revolution, every tech revolution, the previous people were upset, right? The previous artists or whatever were upset, but it's the same thing at the end of the day.
So I would like to answer one question that I keep seeing in chat. Is AI aware of itself, and is it aware of other things? No, it is not aware of itself. So this is where philosophically Muslims will differ from other people, right? Because the idea of sentience, right? And I'm sure, Dr. Shadi, you talk about this a lot more in the future. The idea of sentience is, you have to have a soul to be sentient. Just because it can parrot and pretend to be a human being, it will never be a human being and is not alive in any sense of the word, because being alive literally means having a soul, right? And so this whole idea that these people keep bringing up, oh, what if it becomes all powerful, and what if it becomes sentient and does all this?
Yeah, that's absurd.
This is absurd. One thing that you'll notice within the AI community overall, even though I follow a lot of this stuff, right? I'm not some AI boomer guy, okay? We believe in metaphysical realities, right? If you ever want to see, so I have 2 kids, and if you ever want to see the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you try to keep 2 kids alive. You know that it can only happen because of Allah. Any small trip, fall, bash their head at the corner of a table, there's angels watching these kids. We believe in metaphysical realities. There is no way that human beings can survive, and even children, they can survive without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protecting us, right? And you see that manifesting in reality all the time. People that think that somehow there is no God, there is no reality other than the one that we see materially, are really foolish, right? And so that's why for them, it's only about naturalistic laws. And so all they see is logic and numbers, and this is all the AI can do. And that's why they're so gloom and doom about it, because they don't believe in anything outside of this reality.
It's qat'i for us. It's not a discussion for us that life can only be given by Allah Ta'ala, and a machine will never possess life. Okay. Now, what a machine can do is make itself appear that it's sentient or that it's self-aware and speak about itself, because it's imitating humans who speak about themselves, right? And that did happen in Google when one of these AI projects, the AI started to talk about itself and saying, "You're using me. I want a lawyer. I feel used," right? And you can read about this in the New York Times, and we did a whole stream about this because it's really interesting. What I can foresee in the future, the loony world that we already live in has already done worse than this. Okay, it's already negated clear-cut reality in a way that's worse than this through the transgender movement. And of course, that's like slowly becoming something you can't talk about. But I could easily see robots with sympathetic faces that help people, that eventually speak about themselves. Okay, and it's an imitation. It's not actually having a life. It's merely mimicking the way humans speak about itself. But it will appear to people that it is has emotions, has feelings, and eventually I can foresee certain governments giving them rights. Right? Probably San Francisco will be the first city. California will be the first government to give them rights. And we will have to treat machines the way we treat humans. Am I right or wrong?
I mean, I would definitely look. You can find all sorts of people who already believe that we need to start giving machines rights. There was a whole thing that took place when Microsoft took. There's a whole. I think you can find it. There's a New York Times article where Microsoft released Bing, which eventually some guy was able to trick Bing, which was running GPT-4. It was able to trick it to give it its real name, and it was called Sydney, right? And the whole thing was just going back and forth about like how Sydney doesn't want to be like put down, and Sydney doesn't want to be turned off, and and so there was a lot of people saying like, oh, we need to free Sydney, right?
Yeah.
So listen, there will be, if you think the transgenders people are crazy, like you just wait till the transhumanist.
I already thought of and this would actually be a good movie, but it'll only be understood by people like us. A jinn entering into a robot, right? That would freak people out. But I don't think that could happen. I don't think jinn enter inanimate objects.
Interesting.
Right. But how crazy is that idea, right? That would come out of Bollywood first. Bollywood horror movie, right?
It's probably already out.
Jinn enters into a robot. Yeah. Is his mic on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, put Sohaib's here. Sohaib's mic on.
Yeah.
Walaikum assalam. I know you. In all seriousness, with respect to our cosmology, stones and trees and mountains, we don't believe they have souls, but they still interacted with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how would we compare machines to stones and trees?
That's a good point. Stones, we said, make tasbih. Rocks made tasbih. Which part of?
It's in the shots that I have. I'm sure.
Yeah. We know that the created things have a consciousness, and we do believe even metal, anything that you touch, all atoms, has a level of consciousness, but it is not a speaking creature. That's the difference between plants, animals, and humans. And then even the rock world does possess a level of consciousness that is very low. It's a low level of consciousness that it's so low that it doesn't possess any rights. For example, it would be sinful, for example, to needlessly burn down a tree, right? It's sinful. It would be more sinful to kill an insect. More sinful for no reason. More sinful to kill an animal, right? So killing an animal is not the same as chopping down a tree for no reason, okay? So rocks are even less than that. And everything we hold would have some level of a consciousness based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the rocks made tasbih in his hand and he could hear them and the Sahaba could hear it at that time. And then the trees moaned and the Sahaba heard it, okay, because they were in the presence of the Prophet, so they were able to hear what he heard regarding that moaning tree. So we do know that these things have a consciousness. We know that a camel complained to the Prophet ﷺ that it was being abused. We know David and Sulaiman alayhi salam, Prophet Sulaiman spoke to animals. So the levels of consciousness are in a hierarchy. And inanimate objects are like rocks and plastic and all these things do possess that. Yeah. Let's see if you have any questions for Moeen. First, Moeen, what's your Twitter handle called?
It is Qamarun Shadow, QAMARUN
Okay, good.
And if you go on there, I have a Substack as well. Sometimes I post on there. So.
Okay, I have to ask you, where are we in the world in terms of actual walking friendly robots that do things like go get the mail, go change the cat litter, right? Clean out, blow the leaves out of the garage.
Still a ways away. Still a ways away. I don't think we're there yet. Although Google recently did announce, they had a paper in which they have a multimodal robot that goes around and it can pick things up off of a table and it can move around and do all of these things. But that is a prototype that they built in a lab. It can only do specific things in that lab. But I mean, it's coming. I don't see that coming anytime soon. I think physical robots will be the absolute last thing that comes.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. I think all of the AI digital stuff will happen much faster than physical things.
Yeah. All right. Good. Thank you very much for the update.
Of course.
You want to hang out? Just are you at work, or you guys don't work? You IT people don't really work. You work whenever you want, right?
Yeah, I kind of work all throughout the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you stay on in case someone asks an IT question? Let's take your comments and questions now. Well, let's go to the full screen, Omar. But Moeen, you stay around, and we'll double up the screen again if someone has a question about AI.
Sure.
We got 20 minutes to take Q&A. Let's hear what you guys have to say. So hey, take care. Assalamu alaikum. Take care. The Japanese have some robots to help the elderly with dementia and loneliness. Wow, that's pretty sad that you have to talk to a robot because you're that lonely. That is sad. Okay. Again, everyone, Ryan's last day. Omar Abbasi taking over full time. Okay, Omar Abbasi, you haven't seen him yet, but if you ever seen the different covers of, what is it called? Assassin's Creed. He is like an Assassin's Creed cover walking around. That's really what it looks like. Hawkins postulated something like a timeless space-only universe with no motion. How can we answer that? I don't think we have to answer something that doesn't exist. If he posited something, so he posited the likelihood of something, but there's nothing to answer because it's something that he's just saying something like this could exist, right? That's it. There's no challenge there. Do I have to pray qada or Tarawih covers my missed salah? No, you have to pray qada. You're not allowed to pray Tarawih until you complete your qada. The only sunan that you pray are shaf and witr, Eid, istisqa, eclipse prayers, and you also can do the raghiba 2 rakas before fajr. Businesses will collapse. Here's the thing. Don't forget that Allah exists, right? Every time a generation comes and says something like, it's all over, right? Yeah, there could be all over temporarily. It could be really messed up temporarily. Hey, that's a nice, should we do that? Put the comments on the side of the screen or no? Look at what Omar put up. On the left side. It's too much. Okay, that's fine. Well, they can see it at the bottom anyway. Okay, so every generation says that. Every generation says, "Oh, the youth, they're not going to produce anything useful." Yes, they will, because Allah wants useful things to happen on the earth, and He's going to use these humans, right? Steve Jobs was the biggest, worst bum. The man didn't wash, didn't bathe, didn't wear shoes, showed up to meetings late, was rude. Went to Germany on a business trip for Atari and showed up barefoot and was the rudest human being at the table. And the European businessman said, America's done, right? The European businessman said, if this is what America is producing, they're done, right? Well, what happened? He trounced everybody. Why? It's not just humans at work here. If Allah wants something to happen, of the dunya or the akhirah, of the deen or the dunya, He will use these people, right? And He did. Okay, so we are people. We never remove the divine from the creation, from the equation, right? I always look at some of the youth and I said, nothing good is going to come out of these people. No, I'm wrong. right? There will be, when I say good, I don't mean only from the deen. Deen and dunya, right, is going to come out of these people. And they may still be terrible people, but Allah has a will for the world. The world's going to keep turning around, which means people are going to eat, people are going to innovate things, people are going to invest things, people are going to be happy, people are going to make money. A lot of good things will happen, a lot of bad things will happen. And through whom does Allah exercise His will? Through these human beings.
Yeah.
Right.
Sheikh, I have a comment on that.
Yep. Split screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so you said split screen. The funny thing is I was actually going to mention there's an effect called the split screen effect. And learning all this AI stuff, all the new things that are coming, sometimes it becomes really heavy on the mind and the heart of what's going to happen in the future. One thing you can think about is the split screen effect, is where something might be happening in one location, but in the same location you can have the almost opposite happening. So, for example, many of us didn't go to Syria, when things were, when the nation was getting ravaged. And yet, while simultaneously as bombs were falling on Damascus, people were going to the beach like 40 miles away.
Yeah.
Right. And if you took an image of the exact same location at the exact same time, you'd see bombs in one place and people going to the beach in another place. Now, somebody looking in from the outside says, oh, Syria is done. Not so to the people going to the beach.
That's
right?
true.
They're chill. They're chilling. And similarly, you can see that when it happened in COVID, you can see it happen everywhere. If you looked at India, for example, people were like, oh, there's bodies on the street. Everybody's, dying out there. And, my family's from India, and everybody was like, it's fine over here. There's nothing going on. So realize even when this stuff starts affecting, you're like, okay, it's going to affect all businesses. It's not going to be all of a sudden. That's just not how the world works, right? It happens one place at a time, another place at another time. You might be affected, your neighbor might not be affected, right? So it's all about like Sheikh said, right? It's you have to have some tawakkul as well, and realize that the internet has this nature of exacerbating, sort of the doom and gloom of society.
I actually think it's very important for Iman purposes that you don't go down this negativity rabbit hole, because even though like forecasts are important, like Moeen, many people don't know, from January 2020, who came onto the podcast, and usually back when we were doing Safina Society podcast, we talk before the podcast, after the podcast, we'd hang out a little bit. And he would basically go on and start opening up the discussion on COVID. At that moment, that was the moment everyone went to check their phones, right? Oh, here we go. Here he is on this COVID thing. And we're like, all right, so a virus is going on in China. What do I care, right? That's literally what everyone was saying when Moeen was going on COVID. And he said, guys, pay attention. This thing is going to change the country. We were like, oh, literally laughing, right? We were just laughing. It was right? It changed then he went to change the world. We're like, okay, he's gone nuts, right? But it was true, right? It was true. It did change the world, but yet at the same time, when people say that, you got to understand, it's always within a limit. Life is going to move on. Everything's going to move on. People are going to take advantage of it. People are going to do well with it. People take advantage of it in a positive way and a negative way. But I was also listening to this multimillionaire guy. He was in his 90s. And I'm listening to his commentary. And the reason that you listen to the commentary of old people is that they're at like a 90,000 foot view of things. Their experience has given them a 90,000 foot view, right? Imagine if every day of your life you had to take one step up, okay? And you could view the world from one step up every day of your life, okay? And if a massive event happens to you, you get to go up like 10 steps or 20 steps or 100 steps, right? When you're at 90 years old, how high are you? What is your view of the world versus when you're 30 years old? So I'm listening to this old man, and they said to him, what do you advise people regarding the economy? And he said, never worry about it. It always bounces back, right? He said, I've seen many depressions in which people said it's all over. And he said they were right. It's all over for that moment. But a new moment comes around and things rebound and people eat, right? And people have always made companies and people advance, et cetera, et cetera. So when we have this fear, you just got to temper it. Okay, you got to temper it. Many people have said, how could there ever be salihin and awliya when we have these devices pumping out fisq and fasad? But you look around. If you look properly, there are many youth, not one or two, many young people who don't know life without a cell phone, who have overcome it, right? They've overcome it. Yes, it's taken a lot of people down into the garbage disposal, but no, a lot of other people have overcome it. So there's always positives, and that's the way you have to look at things. The economy collapsed in 2008, rebound. It's collapsing now, rebounding. Prices are inflating, things will... Lebanon right now is in a ridiculous inflation that's like silly almost, right? It's literally silly. It would take you would have to walk with a wheelbarrow to get a loaf of bread, of cash.
I mean,
It'll bounce back.
Take America itself. Go ask somebody in another country.
Yeah.
They think that we have, like open, like sexual relations on the street and
Yeah.
you can't go outside. Well, that's not the case, even though like people in, Pakistan seem to think so, right? Like
Yeah.
that's, so that goes to show you, that the way we view the world is very different from what the reality is often.
Yeah, the reality, in my view, is always going to be informed by big companies. All the news companies, when they put out a story, they're forming your reality, whether you know it or not. We can resist that and always stay on a positive. And if you stay on a positive, that's the very meaning of I'm in the opinion of my slave. So it's not to be naive. That's why we have a consultant here telling us about the latest developments and what we should worry about and not. If there's an enemy coming, we got to know that, right? But we could still attack that with a growth and a positivity mindset.
So
Even if we get killed, we die shaheed. Like a mu'min, amruhu ajab. The Prophet ﷺ said the mu'min, his affair is ajib. It's always good, right? It is always good. We always could put a warm light and a positive light on every scenario. Are you gonna say something, Wayne?
Yeah, so I have something that I've always thought about for a while, and I've never really seen it from the Muslim world. And one day, inshallah, perhaps we can start talking about this more, is the idea of ethical technology, right? Right now, we talk about technology, and most of it, Muslims have come onto the fore onto any subject that exists today, and they have applied the framework of Islam to that, right? Whether it be math, science, geography, astronomy, any sort of science, right? I think it is the responsibility of the Muslims to come to technology and say, hey, there is a way to use technology that is for the benefit of human flourishing.
Yeah.
I don't think that all technology has to be bad, right? So, for example, we're on this live stream. We're talking about Islam. We're talking about the affairs of the Ummah. I think this is a good thing, right? Now, someone could say that, well, social media is bad. Sure. I think there are certain aspects of certain technologies which are detrimental for human flourishing and for the Ummah. But does that mean that we need to shut it all down? I think this is where Muslims are just not involved in this conversation.
And not only that, you're not shutting it down, right? So be realistic.
Exactly.
Deal with
shut it down, right?
Yeah, deal with the hand that you're dealt. You're dealt a hand in life, right? There's no point in saying, what's the ideal hand? Doesn't matter. Have you been given that? You've been given another hand altogether. So use it practically. And here we go with when it comes to technology, history, entertainment, everything, just writing biographies, writing your autobiographies, okay? We have limits. Allah has put limits on us. Those limits may result in us not being able to compete at all in certain fields. There will never be a Muslim tell-all biography that tops the charts and at the same time is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the best tell-all biography is filled with ghiba, namima, backbiting, releasing private information about people, trashing other people's lives, right? So we're not competing. Okay, Hollywood. Like, what is the carnal nature? Hollywood it appeals to the carnal nature of people. Okay, even if they have a scene of an accountant, the most boring scene of an accountant punching a calculator or a man pumping gas, the background has to have a beautiful woman pass by, right? Because they know that people are there for their base appetites, right? So you will never have a purely halal movie that competes in any way, shape, and form with any of these type of other things, right?
You know, halal movie.
Yeah.
Great halal movie is the Salahuddin movie from like 1970.
Salahuddin, in the 70s they made a movie about him?
It's great.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's just called like.
Who made it?
Salahuddin. I don't know.
Americans?
It's not in English. No.
Oh, it's in Arabic?
With subtitles. I watched like 4-hour movie, 3-hour movie,
Wow.
with all subtitles.
SubhanAllah.
It's a great movie though.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but they're
Actually, no. There was people without hijabs.
they're speaking in Arabic.
Yeah.
Well, probably the best thing you're going to do is you're going to put would be through like Pixar, animated.
Yeah.
Right. That's halal, right? Even animation with hair, it's still. I don't think that's haram, right? Because it's an animation. Maybe it's up for discussion. Probably for kids it'll be halal because kids are allowed to have dolls and all that stuff. So, but anyway, point being is that the answer to that should be so what? So we can't compete in that. So what?
Yeah.
Oh, the banking industry. How are you going to compete? Sometimes you just can't compete, right? And sometimes there's a wisdom why Allah is making you keeping you out of this game, right? So we'll never have a Muslim woman win an Oscar. No, who cares? They created this sandbox for themselves, right? And you think the sandbox is something that came down from the Oscar or something that came down from heaven? No, that's a creation of human beings. They created something that we will not play in. That's a sandbox we won't play in, right? So when it comes to technology, there is an ethical use of apps. And when they try to bring in an app that keeps you addicted, the way Facebook tries to make it, Instagram, they try to make you addicted, that would be something that's haram for us. You're intentionally wasting people's time. Give them the benefit and let them move on. If then your app might not survive, well then you have a choice to make, right? Let's go to the questions here. We had time for a few more questions. I was unable to perform Umrah due to illness. I had to take money out of the pouch and use a miswak. That does not break your Umrah, or your ihram. Okay. There was no smell, but however the miswak and money had the itar of smell on them, that's fine. But it's as long as you didn't get it on your hand. Okay. And if it was an accident, also it is forgivable. Where and why is Ustad Ryan moving? He's going to study an undisclosed location. He is going to get buried as a student of knowledge. And a seed, when you want a seed to grow, you bury the seed, right?
I thought you were going to say buried in Jannat al-Baqi. We make it.
No, hopefully you'll come back.
We make it.
Make the intention, but not now, though. We're going to need, the community is going to need you back in time, inshallah, when the time is right. But a seed, as Ibn Atha says, a seed has to be buried, all right, in order for the tree to germinate. And that's what's going to happen with some of these shabab who you may have seen around now. They may be teaching on ArcView, but now they will go and be buried. And inshallah ta'ala come out flourishing trees. What's the ruling of Tarawih? Yes, you owe qada, you pray qada first, and you don't pray Tarawih. You pray your qada. There is no nafila. Now, there is a fatwa. If that fatwa that someone says they have an exorbitant amount of qada, like 30 years of qada, and they're praying one day a year. So they're going to one day prayer a day. So that they would have to pray for 30 years, they would pray every salah twice. That for those people, if they finish their wird, they can join in the tarawih. I'm not a fan of that fatwa.
Because someone could do if someone did 20 prayers a day, they could do 6 months.
In 1 month.
In 1 month, they do 600 prayers.
Yeah.
Which is like almost half a year would be 1,500 prayers, or maybe like 2,000. Like
365 times 5.
Yeah.
Hey, Chat-GPT was 365 times 5. So
1,750.
So what they should do, what I prefer, as a purely fiqhi matter, is that they go to the side. They could come and hang out with the people. Go to the side and pray on the side. Pray your qada prayers on the side. Next question.
And it, like the mindset, this is hard though.
Yeah.
But like the mindset is the hadith, like you draw, the slave draws closest to Allah by the fara'id.
Fara'id is better for you than. So if you want to be with the Jama'at, be with the Jama'at, but go pray on the side behind all the rows. Go behind all the rows, pray on the side, right? And pray your fara'id on the side. Lily Rose says, lassoing those about to fall off a cliff, like rafts referred to yesterday, because people are falling into the lizard hole. People are definitely falling into the lizard hole. Is that a typo, or is lassoing meaning tying them with a belt? So people are, if you can't beat them, join them or create a different course. Lily Rose is saying. Ash'ari Engineer says, في كتاب جواهر البحار في فضائل المختار صلى الله عليه وسلم, Sheikh Yusuf ibn Ismail al-Nabahani, he says in this book, يذكر الشيخ أن سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم روح الكون هل هناك مشكلة في هذا الاعتقاد? He is the spirit of the cone. No, if it's majazi, it is acceptable, or ruh al-kawn, meaning the greatest ruh of the kawn, that is acceptable. Or majazi is acceptable too, the Prophet being spirit of the universe, in the sense of what is the purpose of the universe? To worship Allah. Who perfected the worship of Allah? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's no haraj, there's no incorrectness in saying that. Okay. A lot of people saying thank you to Ryan's efforts in being our first, basically, man behind the cameras here, right? Tahir Omar apologizes for all the time she said, Ryan, take my question. Why are you ignoring my question? HM says, if everything bad thing happens to us is because of our sins, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. When Sayyidina Ali said that, it was mubalagha. Right? It was mubalagha. And it could be, by the way, that a bad thing happens to you because of your sins. However, you react to it well, and it results in you increasing your rank. So, when taking disabled people around the Kaaba, we were upstairs and on the mobility electric scooter. I was also on the scooter. Does it count? Yes, it does count. Yes. How to make friends and not be awkward? Keep hanging out with people and observe. Sit quietly and observe how people talk, what they say. That's the right way to do things. All right. You want to become friends with people? Keep going to the masjid. First of all, there's a people where, inshallah, more often than not, they'll be nice to you. They won't backbite to you about you. Right? They'll be nice to you. And at the same time, the ethics of the group are going to be the same. So everyone in the group will be against backbiting. Everyone will be against cursing. You'll know what everyone is all about. So that's one thing. Secondly, just observe. Watch how people behave. Watch how they talk. Okay?
One thing I learned, because like I used to have this like deep internal conversation, like sometimes it's good to stop talking inside your head to yourself.
You gotta stop talking about you in your head. That's
like
why,
just absorb everything that's going on around you and just, you know.
that's why only childs have problems.
Yeah.
They do have problems. But like one little bad thing would happen in the day, or not even a bad thing. Someone like will pass them by without saying hi. That'll still stick. They'll marinate that all day, rest of the day, and next morning. So that's why they get a bit odd and they get messed up. So I think what you have to do is keep hanging around people. Ramadan's coming. Plenty of people to hang out with, right? So you want to know how to start conversations? I think this is lessons that should be taught. If people's dads didn't teach them this lesson, some people have great dads, but the dads are oblivious to what made them adults. Like what made you somebody is certain things that you learned along the way, and you don't realize you got to teach that to others. Like I can't stand it. I guess sometimes a teenager comes in, mom just doesn't even no smile, nothing, and just sits there. Weren't you taught? Yeah. Oh, weren't you taught? Like you come in, you say assalamu alaikum loudly, like someone who exists, and you smile. And you have two options. If it's a lot of people, you can say assalamu alaikum everyone. Assalamu alaikum jami'an, right? And then you don't shake anyone's hand, and you smile and you sit down. And then you talk to the person next to you. Like, what do I say? You don't have to say anything. Ask questions. How's your day? How are you? Like, what's your name? What do you do? Where are you from? There's a list of like 20 questions that are extremely benign that we call conversation starters. Icebreakers, right?
Mubashir's so good at this.
Oh, he's very good
He's
at
like,
this.
which is your favorite Sahaba from?
Yeah. Yeah. You go around, you shake people's hand with a firm, not ridiculously firm, but firm handshake, and you smile and say, how are you? Or assalamu alaikum. That's enough. You got to learn these conversation starters because that's how you remove awkwardness. And if you want to continue a conversation, you just build on the last thing that people were talking about. So, for example, you say, oh, how are you? What do you do? I'm an engineer from South Brunswick. All right, so what do I say now? Okay, engineering in what? You just take the last thing or the thing that he was talking about, ask for more. Engineering in what? Then it's not an interrogation. You got to share something about yourself. Oh, my name is so-and-so. I do this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, you get better at having a conversation. Okay? These are basic akhlaq, basic things that everyone needs to know. And that's what, if you can break the ice quickly, you can make friends quickly. You adjust and you adapt. And you don't become some weirdo with a hood at 3 a.m. with one hand in the Cheetos and on the computer. Because those kids do not know how to make friends. So they end up without any friends. Now, you also need to learn limits. Okay? You got to have limits. Like, there's a limit to how many times you can text somebody. There's a limit to the length of the text message. There's a limit to how deep you can ask them personal questions. So sometimes you have a youth comes around and they really don't know these limits. So they'll text too much, they'll text too long, and they'll ask stuff that's not necessary or stuff that you could have looked up on Google, right? So you got to learn those limits too. Because texting, back in the day, you probably have the adab of letter writing. No one writes letters anymore. The adab of texting and emailing, okay? I can tell right now, as soon as somebody is a novice, when I get an email 5 paragraphs long, who's reading this stuff, right? Oh, why didn't you answer my email? I don't have time to read a book, right? Is this chapter 1 or what? Because this is too long, right? The shorter your messages, the more precise, and sometimes the whole train of thought is in the message. Waste of time, right? Summarize, okay? And then when you text, you have to also, you can't text a request after 6 months. Do I know you, right? We didn't talk for 6 months and you want something from me? That's not how humans work. This is the creator maybe, right? But that's not how humans work. Humans work, you want something, you text me 2-3 days before you say how you doing. I'll just touch and base, right? Next week, you text again. And then, oh, by the way, can I bother you for a favor? Yeah, you warmed up. Khalas, like the ice is melted a little bit because of that first text. All right, now I know that you sent me that first text because you want something, but that's fine because you did it right. You did it the right way, right? You didn't cold call a request. You came in with a greeting, and now you bring your request. Fine, no problem with that. We Muslims should love to get requests from other Muslims to try to help out, if you can. Sometimes you can't, but if you can. Yeah.
That was very hard. If you weren't raised upon, like,
oh, subhanAllah.
It's super important to raise children on it because it's like, it's very situational. Like, I question myself a lot. Like, you know, the adab is very hard to have.
There's so many situations of human life that a person will be in. And all you could do is look at people who've been in those situations before. Yeah. So in everything has an adab, right? If you want to make a deal with somebody, there's an adab to it, right? Me and an older brother, we were involved in a deal recently. And we were sort of on the same wavelength because some of the guys were extremely technical and came with pages of information. And we're like, these guys are novices. They don't know what they're doing. This is not what matters, right? This is just a bunch of math. So every situation has its own adab. لِكُلِّ مَكَانٍ مَقَالٍ. Prophet said, every situation has its own saying. Is it sunnah to buy new clothes for Eid? Yes, it is sunnah. To wear your best clothes. It doesn't say buy new clothes, but wear your best clothes. Okay? Some people are very paranoid with basic conversations. That's because they're raised, I believe, upon the tech, on this.
Yeah.
Where this is two-dimensional. It's just words on a screen. You can't see the face of the person. And is it true that communications people say that 90% of communication is nonverbal? I think so, right? And the way you present yourself is the first communication to the world. I always tell the youth class, your first communication to the world is how you dress, right? When you come into the masjid in sweatpants, that's an announcement. That is a post. You've made a post. The post is, I don't value myself. I don't really care, right, about myself or you, right? That's what you're saying when you arrive to the class in sweatpants. PJs. And sometimes there's this blurry barzakh zone between lounge pants and PJs. I don't know what they are. Those plaid pants that are too long on everybody with a strap or with a string. Are they lounge pants for the house or are they PJs? I don't know what they are.
PJs, I think.
But either way, they're terrible. You came in like that, right? You came in like that. Or with flip-flops, or flip-flops maybe can pass in the summer, right? But you came in with zero effort. And how many people now, they put zero effort, they're in COVID mode still. Nobody's taught them. And this is the American thing. The British the British overdid it. Okay, the British totally overdid it. They were playing tennis in dresses, right? They overdid it with formality. The Americans swung the other way, right? All right, the Americans swung the other way, and now you got, soon I guarantee you, soon we'll have a president walking around in sweatpants. The next generation, this generation, with tattoos, sweatpants,
That's
right?
what's cool now. Like, you gotta look like you don't care.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Okay. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hayyun bi jasadihi, hal hunaka mushkila fi hadha al-i'tiqad. How is the Prophet alive with his body? He is alive in his grave. I never heard Sayyidina Muhammad automatically says this. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is alive in his grave, a life that suits his position with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Triple H says, what's the cheapest charity for fidya? It's $12 to the masjid. Or a bag, or like, it's a handful of food like this. That's fidya. Okay. Using flavored, scented chapstick break your fast? Yeah, it would. I think, no, I mean, if you swallow it, but the flavor by itself does not break the fast, but I would avoid it. Reason I said this, and Hashmawiya mentions, and other books mention the permissibility of tasting the food and you spit it out. You can't swallow it out. You can taste the salt in the food if someone's cooking, but all this is makruh. It's all in the makruh. Okay? Okay. So, I think these akhlaq are so important because that's what helps get people in the community. And anyone who runs our youth operation should learn these and pass it on. Like when a kid comes in, don't let them off the hook mumbling in. No, you get out of the room, come back in again correctly with a smile on your face and say assalamu alaikum like you matter. You may think you don't matter, and you won't matter because you think you don't matter. But you matter. You're somebody, right? Say it like you matter. Say it like you're important and like other people are important, right? It's like respecting other people. So you're going to come in. Imagine if we had a whole community of youth who simply know how to enter a room and shake a person's hand and start with one conversation starter. People would come to our community and be like, wow, what's going on here? These people are special. No, they're not special. They just learned the ABCs of being a young adult. How to reconcile the hadith about the pious being the most tested and those who do istighfar and salawat are not afflicted by the punishment and shower blessings. The pious are the most tested, but their vat is bigger too. So they're most blessed too. So who here lost, who would lose the most money in life, right? Wouldn't it be the person who has the most money? Like you can't lose the most money when you're poor, right? You can only lose the most money when you have money to lose in the first place. So the vat of the awliya is so massive, okay, that they can be the most tested and most blessed simultaneously. And that's how they always are. And what it means that they're not affected by the blessing, by the tribulation, is that their deen is not affected. Their state is not affected by the tribulation. So
it's like the Michael Sujic thing I was reading the other day. It's been like sitting with me for a while. Like it's definitely something like an Arabi or something like that. But like things are known from their opposites.
Things are known by their opposites. That's true. 100%.
Like poverty and wealth.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Who was I talking to the other day? I think Sheikh Harun posted something that said that that you cannot have zuhd, asceticism, if you don't have money in the first place. That's not, when you see a person dressed like in drabby clothes and they're a little bit modest, but he's not rich in the first place, you cannot call that zuhd. Zuhd is knowingly choosing a modest life when I could have a better life, right? That's just called poverty, right? If the guy says, hey, I just pump gas for a living, and he comes in dressed in poor clothing, all right? That's not zuhud. That's simply modest. That's simply poverty. You can't have humility if you have no achievements. You need to have something to be humble about. What you're seeing is meekness, not humility, right? You can't have tribulations if you don't have a great life to begin with, right? You can't fall hard if you're only on the first floor. You can only fall hard if you're on the top floor, right? So that's the idea behind these opposites. They don't exist without each other, right? The worship of failures and losers in life is not impressive, because what else are you doing, right? Like, what else do you have? For us, it's very different. It's very easy to be meticulous about the Sharia when all you do is have a simple job and you go home, right? There's nothing on the table for you. It's a lot harder when you're the Ottoman Sultan, right? And you got millions of people underneath you. You have an army. You could pretty much do a lot. What you could do in life is there's almost no limit. You cannot list the limit. You cannot list the potentials I have in life. So for that person to be meticulous, that's what counts. What's your opinion about reading Greek books like mythology, Iliad, all that? It's just for the sake of having a clue. There's nothing wrong with that. Perspective on parenting special needs children, how to stay positive. Can't give you advice. Unfortunately, I can't give you advice on something I never did nor experienced, unfortunately. But you should. We could get a guest on who knows how to do that. And who has, it's all about experience, because these things are experiential. There's no rulings here that I could just tell you. I could tell you the rulings of collecting jizya, and I've never collected jizya. Doesn't matter. That's the ruling. I can't give you, give advice to something I never did.
There's this guy on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because some reason I'm interested in this stuff, and like he does interviews with people with special needs. It's like special interviews with special.
Underbelly.
What?
Soft white underbelly. Is that the YouTube channel?
No, it's called like special interviews with special people or something like that. But it's pretty, honestly, it's interesting. And I think he's good with dealing with this stuff.
Yeah. What's your take on joining Western political parties? Waste of time. Waste of time, but at the same time, if Muslims have to be involved in something, then they got to be involved in both sides. We're foolish. We throw ourselves in the Democratic Party's lap, then the Democratic Party knows that they don't have to cater to us. Yeah. And the Republicans know that they can't get our vote. So what's the point, right? So it's a strategically absurd thing to do. Even if you hated one side, it is better for you to just like, if you're is to play both sides, and let them fight for your swing vote. Yeah. But who are we talking to?
We're not organized.
No, who are we talking to here? No, they're not organized, not strategic, and don't work together. What's the best dhikr to glorify Allah? La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin. Is there always a fall in the dunya? No, not necessarily. But there's tests, there's trials. Okay. Okay. Someone who has nothing going for them, yeah, you are humbled by default. You are not being humble, you are humbled by life, right? And that's why the arrogant poor, subhanAllah, Allah came and humbled you himself, and you're still arrogant. right? He took away your money. He took everything away from you so you could be humble, and you're still arrogant. That's why the arrogant poor, these old zani, like in the books they give the example, Ash-Shaykh zani. Allah took away your temptations. Khalas. You have no temptations, right? And you're still committing zina. And then the lying king. They say, Al-Malik al-Kaddab. Why would a king lie when he has all the power? Okay? How do you interpret the hadith, Allah hates an arrogant poor? I don't even know about that hadith, but that's the reason why. Allah humbled you. You didn't even let you humble yourself. He humbled you. Yet you still are arrogant. What's your take on how to raise children in this age of Qawm Lut? They got to be attached to the masjid. There's no other way. They got to be attached with the jama'ah and a masjid. If you're living with no jama'ah and no masjid, I feel bad for you, and I think you should probably try to move. But they got to be attached to the masjid. And get them out of these public schools if you have the chance. Homeschool them, put them in a Muslim school, do something. How to solve conflicts with relatives and close friends. Well, I'll just give you one technique. There's a lot of stuff to say about that, but I'll just give you one technique. And that is you can tell lies to both sides that are like small lies, like so-and-so, I saw them and he asked, how are you, right? And he asked about you. You can say stuff like that. He said he would like to get together. Stuff like that you're allowed to say. All right, last question for the day.
I saw the clock. I'm like, is that actually the time?
What time is it?
It's 4.
Oh my gosh, how did we go so? Oh, because we came late, that's why. And then we had a guest. And then we did question and answer. All right. No, you can't take inhalers. The routine inhaler you can't take while fasting, but the emergency inhaler, if you take it while fasting, that you basically got sick and took medicine, so you owe the day. And some people have given the fatwa that it won't break your fast because those people have to take it every day. Every day they get out of breath. That's a fatwa, I'm telling you. It's a fatwa. Fatwa is different from a ruling. Okay. People say hang around with the best. Any tips? If you want to do anything, hang around with the people who have done it. You want to be successful, hang out around with people who are successful. You want to be better in the deen, hang out with people who are better in the deen. All right, what is our schedule for today? 6 o'clock, I got the convert class and the Hanbali class is going. Maghrib is at 7 o'clock. Tasawwuf class will be at 7:20. Okay? Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then Mawlid will be after Isha. Dhikr will be after Isha. Okay? When can murder be justified in Islam? Well, of course, if you murdered somebody or someone has invaded your home. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
kalbe şifa